Welcome to a new video. Today we're going to start talking about a new archetype that I'm super excited for, and that is Trancendrake. The first archetype out of 3 archetypes in Wild Survivors. Trancendrake's, unlike the other 2 archetypes, is basically a boost for dinos, which is really cool as an overall thing, which we're going to talk about in this video. But before we jump right into it, I have a few things that I want to say. First and foremost is that the reason why the channel was kind of like dead silent for a while is because of the fact that, well, happily, I got married recently, like 3 weeks ago in the time of this recording, and that's why I kind of just wasn't really around and didn't really have time to make videos. But yeah, I might come back to normal schedule, probably going to take a while, but we'll see. For the time being, let us enjoy this video, and of course, if you enjoyed the videos like this, or you want to see more, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I know I'm not really much around as I used to be, but I will try to upload a few videos from time to time to just giving you something really fun. Of course, give a like to the video if you enjoy, and let me know in the comments down below what do you think about my explanation, as well as just this breakdown as an overall. But without further ado, let's jump right into this very interesting archetype. So Trancendrake, as I mentioned, is an archetype, but well, it's kind of halfly true because Trancendrake is more of an engine in my opinion. Trancendrake is an engine that works really well with dinos as like kind of like support for them, but also kind of like take the power of normal dinos. Yes, that sounds weird, but that's one of their mechanics. Basically using normal dinos as engines to essentially use for your synchro summons, fusion summons, and exceed summons, as well as just if, you know, one of the boss monsters die, they basically shuffle the normal dino back and then revive themselves. They kind of like really cool in that regard, and they also just really have the nice synergy as well that they do work still with the normal dino stuff of like popping cards to then just giving you additional more advantage. So it's basically kind of dinos, but also just using the normal dino side of things. And that's kind of like how much I have kind of to explain them. Maybe there is something on screen if I forgot to mention it that I remembered, so if you want to, you're more than welcome to read it. But now let's actually move into the 7 cards that we have here, and we're going to start with the most interesting card out of all of them, or should I say the best monster out of all of them for the deck, and that is Xenometeorus. Also, one thing to mention is that there's only 4 cards in the archetype named Transcendrakes, the extra deck monsters, and the big boss monster. The rest are just cards without the name for some reason, but whatever. As for Xenometeorus, this particular card is a very cool one. It says that if a card is destroyed by battle by card effect, you're able to special summon this card out of your hand, and then during the main phase you can activate this effect. You cannot special summon a monster from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except Dragon, Dino, Sea Serpent, and Worm. Also destroy 1 dinosaur monster you control or in your hand, and special summon 1 dinosaur normal monster from your hand or deck. And of course you can only use each effect once per turn. So in my opinion, Xenometeorus is a really excellent card. While it does lock you into some certain extra deck monsters, and of course it does summon only a normal dino monster, it's still a really good card due to the fact that it's able to just basically giving you another summon, as well as just destroy any dino in your hand. It doesn't have to be in your field, it can also be in your hand, so you can trigger some particular effects, which is really good. And of course, if any card is destroyed by battle or by a card effect, you can special summon it, and it works really well with the spell that we're going to get into it, as well as like things like Dragonic Diagram, your Soul-Eating Oviraptor, anything specifically. This card will special summon itself immediately. It's also a level 6 tuner, so even if you don't use the effect, it's in a level 4 is equal of their own. So this card is absolutely excellent. I will give it only a 4-star though, because I don't think it's a free off card, but it's still a very excellent card. So this card getting a 4 stars out of me. The last main deck monster from Transcendrake is a very interesting one called Transcendrake Meteorus, which is supposed to be the big version of Xenometeorus. This particular card can only be special summoned during the opponent's turn for some reason by destroying 2 other dinosaurs monsters you control or in your hand, and you special summon this card out of your hand. And if this card is special summoned, you are able to send 1 dinosaur monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if this card is destroyed, you get to shuffle 1 normal monster from your graveyard to your deck and special summon this card, which essentially kind of like work with the same thing thing that I mentioned before as one of the mechanics. If the boss monsters die, they return by shuffling a normal monster back into the deck. Now this card is getting from me a 1-star. This card is interesting for the fact that it's able to destroy your petites or your you know, what is it called, baby Ceratosaurus during the opponent's turn to maybe summon what is it called? Dinosaur Pancratops, or read particular cards out of your deck due to its effect destroying dinos in your hand. But this is really just base case scenario. And then just Foolish Burial, something like maybe a Misk if you want to for a later turn, or a normal monster if it dies to then just return it back. It's a 3500 beat stick, which is not bad, but it's still not really that good. This card getting out of me still a 2 because it does have some room to maybe be good, maybe in the future if they'll find a weird way to make it good, but from what I'm seeing, this card is just not as great. And even if you're trying to maybe make this card okay with double evolution pill, it's still not really that good. But because of the fact that it can also be used for double evolution pill, that's also a reason why I'm giving it a 2. Now, for the next lineup of cards, we are actually going to talk about the extra deck monsters, which we have the fusion, which is called Gigantozowaller, and Glace, which is the fusion, Glacerosaurus, which is the synchro, and Drill Gigantus as your Xyz. I'm just going to call them the Trancendrake Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz just to make it really easy for me. But as for the fusion, this particular card, if it's special summon, allowing you to target a dino in your graveyard and add it to your hand, and if this card is special summon from the graveyard, you can destroy both one card you control or in your hand and one card your opponent control. And if this card is destroyed, of course, the normal Transcendrake's boss monsters effect, you're able to shuffle a normal monster from your graveyard into the deck and then special summon this card, which is really good. Of course, both of the effects are how to once per turn, or all of the effects. As for Glacius, it basically just says that it cannot be destroyed by battle. Your opponent cannot target your dino's monsters that special summon with from the graveyard with card effect. Also cannot be destroyed by your opponent card effect. And the last one, which is Drillosaurus or the Xyz, says that if this card battles with another monster with no Xyz material, it's able to inflict double damage to your opponent. The other effect is that you're able to touch one material from this card and target one banished dino monster and special summon it. So out of all of these specifically, if you haven't seen Transcendrakes in action, which one do you think is the best? Well, I'm going to say it to you in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. The fusion one is the best one. The reason why the fusion one is the best one is the one that you don't really need to module for. It's only require a dino and a normal monster, which you can use the normal spell that the Archetype got, which we're going to talk about in a second, that can actually help you to summon this card really easily. It's easily the biggest one, and it's also have the ability to recover cards back to your hand and destroy things during the opponent's turn. So even if you destroy this with, like, let's say on Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, it still come back, destroy a card, and recover something to your hand, and also shuffle a normal monster back to your deck. So yeah, Trancendrake, the fusion monster is the best one, which is getting 3 stars out of me. The Glacerosaurus is getting 2 stars. I think it's probably the worst one out of them. It's just easy to summon. It's not the hardest one, but it's just not really that good. It's just battle phase related stuff and only work with dino summons from graves, so I do think it is the worst one. And then the Xyz is okay, but it requires 2 level 6s, which is not the easiest thing to do, because I rather run Mega Smash or X than running like the Dino level 6 normal monster to just have less of bricks. But if you want to, you could run that and then just make this rank 6 and then summon a banished Dino. It's not bad. I'm going to give this one a 3 as well. Actually, I'm decided to basically to give this one a 3 because it's good. I know the fusion is the best one, but I couldn't really give a 3.5 scoring, so that's why I decided to go with this one. But yeah, that's pretty much does it for the extra decks as well. Just really simple, really straightforward. Then we have the fusion slash search spell Ground Xeno, which is the spell card that is absolutely bonkers, because this card is going to replace Lost World in my opinion, because this card says that you can add any dino tuner or a normal dino monster from your deck to your hand, and then you destroy 1 card in your hand, which is ridiculous, because with Xenometeorus, it's immediately activated if you destroy a baby or any monster specifically, and if you destroy a baby, you're also getting a monster, which is just insane. And then the other thing that, as I mentioned, this is also a fusion spell because you can banish this from your graveyard and fusion a dino, fusion monster from your X deck using monster from your hand or field as fusion material. And if you also get the normal monster on the field, you are able to summon to the Transcendrake fusion, which is really, really good. So this card getting easy 5 stars. This card is absolutely amazing. It's a free off in the deck. It's just such a good card and it's just absolutely amazing. However, the last card, which is the Trancendrake card that we got revealed lastly, was a really huge disappointment because people really expected this card to be very, very good, but it's not. And the card I'm going to talk about is the Trap Transcendent Flight. This particular card is such a the design card and also just a really, really bad card that I don't really know what they were thinking. First and foremost, it's not a Transcendrake card, or there is no way to really search it, so it's really weird to just have this card instead of just like being maybe a counter trap or something really cool. But no, this card says that you can target a dino monsters that are in the graveyard or banished, or either graveyard or banished, and special summon it to your field, and you can only use this effect once per turn. No graveyard effect, no something really insane, no, just giving you the effect that you have on the Xyz monster, a little bit better, but on a trap card. This getting a 1-star, this card is absolutely atrocious. It's pretty much the worst card in the entire archetype, by far. It's okay, but the problem is, like I mentioned before, there is no ways to search it. So this card is absolutely atrocious. But that pretty much does it for the Trancendrake archetype kind of breakdown. There are 7 cards, like I mentioned before. There's not really a whole lot to talk about, and it's mostly support for dinos more than anything. It's not really supposed to be played by itself, so that's why I specifically wanted to talk about these in a different way, because normally I would do tech cards and cards that are good to use against, as well as mentioning strength and weaknesses of the archetype. But in this particular case, there's really no reason to do that, because the strength and weaknesses of the archetype are kind of contributed to dinos. The tech cards that you use in dinos, you are going to use in this archetype because this is an engine for dinos, and any good cards against dinos are also good against this archetype because, again, this is a supporting engine for dinos. So that's why I'm not going to do those sections. I'm actually going to show you an actual deck list instead to essentially maybe help you with the archetype, because I think this is a little bit more beneficial than actually talking about cards that are good and good against and cards that are good to use, as well as strength and weaknesses, because those particular sections are just like being lazy and just like mentioning dinos over and over again in the same normal things. So now let's jump right into a deck list and showing you what this archetype, in my opinion, should really look like as maybe a deck build day 1 experiment, and then just moving forward when ratios are a little bit more fun. Alright, so welcome to the deck list. As I mentioned before a few seconds ago, we're now going to go over what do I think is the best kind of list to start things forward with the, Trancendrake support. This is just talking about the Trancendrake stuff. I'm not talking about the other dino support that is Duelist Nexus. This is something that we need to talk about in a later video or things of that nature. But the point is, we have here the list using the new Trancendrake cards that I think are necessary to run in the new list. Not to mention the fact that I'm also just not running like super expensive cards as well that are not like, necessary, like Prosperity, because Prosperity is just like $50 a copy a card. So I'm going to try to make this as much as budget as possible while also just keeping this competitive. So now let's go card by card and essentially explain it to you. So first things first, we're running 2 copies of course, Xeno Meteoris, 1 Megalosmashalor X, and 3 Ground Xeno as for our Trancendrake package. Xeno Meteoris is basically our card, as I mentioned before. It's the tuner dino monster that basically triggers with Ground Xeno effect, which is crazy. So if you pop a baby, right, with Ground Xeno, like you have Ground Xeno, a baby, you pop the baby, then this will activate immediately and then special summon itself out of the hand, and you also get to summon out of the baby, which is absolutely ridiculous. So this is really good. And for also its engine requirement, we're running the 1 Mega Smashalor X. You can also run, if you want to, an additional normal monster. If you're going into more of the Transcendrakes, also using the Synchro and the Xyz, you can also run that one, the Froskus. the Brachiosaurus, whatever it is, the level 6 dino water monster as well. That's very really good. But for my particular list, I decided to not go with that line. I feel like the Mega Smash Lord X and the Fusion are the only thing that's kind of necessary for this deck, so that's why I decided to run the Mega Smasher X instead. Also, it's the 2000 monster, so yeah, it's pretty good. As for Ground Xeno, this card is absolutely ridiculous. If you see this card is in your hand, it's basically an absolutely ridiculous of a card. This is basically kind of replace your Lost World right now, so that's why we don't run Lost World at all. It's kind of just not necessary because if you have the Ground Xeno. Also, Ground Xeno is really crazy as well. Some people think like after turn 1 it's not that great. I would agree on that, but it's not the end of the world because you can search with this the copy of Mega Smash Lord X that you're going to get back after you use the effect of your fusion, which basically allowing you to, when it dies, to shuffle one normal monster from your graveyard into the deck and special summon this card, so you always have something targeted live for the next turn. As well as you do have an additional copy of Xeno Meteorus if you need to, or your copy of Scrap Raptor if you haven't used a scrapped engine and you got stopped in the way. You have another copy of a Dino Tuner, so you do have some particular options at the very least. And also it can actually use to be search Scrap Raptor, which is really good. So if you do have this, or you just want to search a Scrap Raptor, this is also just a great way to just search that, so that's really good. Moving on, we're also running the True King engine. We're running 3 copies of Lithosagem, which can trigger really easily with your babies, as well as your Scrap Engine and your Giant Drax and your, you know, Pankratops. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, without including the Lithosagem that you are activating in your hand. So technically you have like 12 Earths, which I think is very much enough. And also the Organic Diagram to search this card, as well as basically, you know, to just like getting another pop. Now, even if you don't resolve this effect, it's pretty good, but if you're able to resolve the the Earth effect, it's absolutely ridiculous because you are able to dismantle your opponent X deck, which is very good. So yeah, this is just a really nice package, and I decided to run that. The Scrap package with 2 Scrap Raptor and Scrap Chimera, very standard. The Scrap Engine is really good with the Scrap Wyvern, giving you the ability to just get an additional kind of normal summon, as well as just popping cards if you need to. Very nice as an overall thing. And then of course the normal dino stuff with Free Soul Eating Oviraptor, 1 Miscellaneous, which we do have it at 1 still, and for some reason I decided to remove the Misk from the list because it's overly powerful. But seriously though, 1 copy of Misk is still at 1 for us, for a very good reason, because this card is absolutely ridiculous. And of course, Holding Oviraptor is your Rhoda card, so that's really good. Baby Ceratosaurus for baby pops, and then Petite Pteranodon only at 1 because of the Transcendrake Gigant Tomon, whatever, the Trancendrake's fusion, which is very hard name to pronounce for me. Basically, you kind of just only need the 1 Petite Pteranodon because you're able to recover 1 to your hand and then pop it later for its own effect, and you don't really need to run that much babies. So that's why we're running only the 1 copy of Petite, although there can be an argument to make that you can run a second one. Then 2 copies of Archosaur because it's necessary for your double evolution pill in your combos. Giant Rex as well for combos. Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, just in case that we draw 1, we will still have the second one. Pankratops, absolutely insanely good card, also very good to summon with the Trancendrake fusion after you destroy a dino in hand, which will be most of the time the Petite Pteranodon. Double evolution pill, which is just a really good card to search with this, as well as just, you know, summoning Ultimate Conductor Tyranno is really good. Fossil Dig because we do have 3 searches, and then 8 spots to do whatever you want to. I think these 32 cards are kind of like mostly mandatory. The rest you can do whatever you want with. You can maybe cut this if you feel like this is just a not necessary engine. I've seen some people don't run the Lithosagem diagram engine. This is also an option for you to cut if you want to run more like things like Pot of Prosperity or have more board breaker options as well. But yeah, these are just like, you know, the side cards that you can just like put whatever you want here. As for the X deck, as I mentioned before, we're running one copy of Trancendrake's Fusion. This is the only one that you need. It's a really good card, very big, giving you the ability to just target a dino in your graveyard, add it to your hand, and then if this card was special summon from grave, you're able to destroy one card in your hand or you control and one card your opponent control, giving you the ability to just, if it dies even during your opponent's turn by your own effects, you are able to just recover it back, get a card back to your hand. It's a baby, you pop the baby, and then you get, for example, to summon, like I said, a Archetype, which is another pop. Then for your synchros, we have one Baron if you are not locking yourself first into your, well, types with this card. So if you're not locking yourself with this, you are able to summon with the Baron, which is Baron really good. Cheng Ying, very good synchro monster, which is a worm. Same goes for Savage and goes for Draco Berserker. And then for the Xyz monsters, we have one Lagia, one Dolka, which are kind of mandatory. One Baguska if you're getting stops and you have 2 level 4s on the field, at the very least you're able to summon something. One Abyss Dweller because the Sea Serpent are very good. I also consider Tornado Dragon, but I'm not 100% sure about that card. And then for the links, one access code for the OTKs, one Appaloosa if you're able to make it and you are not going into this package for some weird reason, or you're using this package to essentially search your scrap package. Sometimes there are some weird things that you are doing with Ground Xeno, but for the most part you are using this engine. But if you don't, you do have the scrap engine as well as an alternative option. Scrap Wyvern, which is a dragon, which is really good because it does save it to being a good option for you still, even with this card locking your extra deck, which is pretty awesome. One Cost Sheep if you are able to summon it before you're locking yourself, and then you just summon the this card and then just summon another level 4 out of grave for free. And then this package just in case you are having the one card combos as back in the day as well, just like, you know, if your opponent kind of stop you, just still have the ability to summon the double evolution Pill Ultimate Conductor Tyranno engine with, you know, Secure Gardener and Linkaribo if you need to. So that's pretty good for me, at least in my opinion. As a list, I think this list works really well as an overall. Like I said, this may be the only package that I may be considering changing, but I do think the Lithosagem kind of being able to just get rid of extra deck monsters is just so powerful, and being able to pop 2 babies is really good, as well as just Diagram being an absolutely broken card. So yeah, that's pretty much does it for me. And now let's move on into the end of the video. All right, so now that the deck list is over and everything is finished where it comes to this particular section, we're now can move on into the end of the video. Well, the end of the video actually doesn't really have anything to say that much as well, because it's basically just mentioning that this is just additional really good support for dinos. This giving dinos a nice, really awesome needed boost, kind of like for 2023, giving them a really good tuner monster that also work with the destruction synergy, giving them a really strong spell and an extra deck monster, which is the fusion one, which works really well with everything and complementing them very well. And if you want to go more roguish using the entire archetypes, you also have 2 additional excellent cards in the extra deck. Well, one excellent and one okay-ish to actually kind of use if you want to go more on the meme route, but mostly the, you know, the what is it called, more competitive lists are going to use Xenometeorus, the Ground Xeno, and of course the Trancendrake Fusion as your overall thing. Still, very good cards, very good support, and giving the archetype, or should I say the dino lineup, really much needed boost, essentially just updating it into the more modern age. So dinos, in my opinion, are now going to be a pretty good competitive deck. I wouldn't say, like, you know, tier 1, because I don't really believe that this is what it's going to be, but I do think it's going to be sitting comfortably as like a tier 2, maybe more of a roguish, but I do think it's kind of going to go full front in a competitive scene, just not being the top tier meta, maybe like, you know, the low tier of the meta, just like how, you know, ninjas are, like anti-meta. It's just going to be good. It's not going to be rogue, but it's going to be kind of anti-meta, low meta status. I'm going to give all of this support as an overall, I think, 4 stars. I know this is a high rating, even though the like 4 of the archetype cards are not really that good, but the reason for that is because the 3 cards that are good are really good. Like, they are really powerful cards. So that's why I'm deciding to give this 4-star rating, because Ground Xeno is insane. Xenometeorus is also really awesome, and the fusion also just giving you another layer of interruptions, as well as some crazy things that you're able to do. So that's why I decided to give this a 4. But that's pretty much does it for the, you know, short video-ish I guess, for you know, Transcendrakes, like I said, are probably the most interesting archetype out for me. The hamburger archetype also pretty interests me, but yeah, we'll talk about it when we'll get to it and we'll have the time. But hope you enjoyed. Hope we'll see you next time, when of course I'll have the time to upload another video. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.